All right, why don't we get started? It's 7:04. My name is Tom Callahan. Call the meeting to order, the 11th meeting of FY25 for the Community Preservation Committee. Welcome everyone. And let me just take the roll. Rob.
Rob Levash, member, Parks Commissioner.
Cheryl.
Cheryl Tagayas, representative from the planning board.
Pete.
Pete Jackson, at-large member.
Jenny.
Jenny Russell, vice chair and also at-large.
Yeah. There she is.
Good evening, I'm Wendy Garpo, representative of the Conservation Commission.
Thanks, Wendy. I didn't see you there. Okay, there you go. And anybody else?
Kathleen O'Donnell, newly reappointed citizen member.
There you go.
Congratulations.
And sworn in. yesterday.
So Kathleen, we forgot to have the cake for you. You get a cake every time you're reappointed. Just kidding.
Oh, really?
No. It's just being a little silly, that's all.
Apologize for being late, but we had a ZBA meeting at the same time.
Fair enough.
Agenda? I got one.
All right.
Oh, Linda's here.
Oh, good.
I'm sorry, what?
Linda's here on Zoom.
Oh, yeah, I just saw Linda. Okay, great. Linda, do you want to introduce yourself?
Linda Weld, Historic Commission.
Okay, we have everybody. Our current committee of 8, size is 8 right now, since I don't believe we have a housing authority appointee. So we have everybody. So thank you, everybody, for both in attendance and also our committee members for being in the room and online. Let's get right into it. Administrative items, just a reminder, the upcoming meetings that we set at the last meeting are July 14th. And July 22nd. I believe I have that correct. Somebody should correct me if I'm wrong, but I think those are the two next meeting times that we established.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, good. July 14th at 7 p.m., July 22nd at 7 p.m. I think, right? We didn't.
That's correct,
Yeah. Okay. We didn't switch the times. Okay. Julia has prepared the minutes for the last meeting, the June 11th, 2025 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
There were a couple edits. Were those
Okay.
put in the- Okay.
There was one other that I noticed. Did you see that one today? There was at the very end, it says that I refused at 9:05, and then it says the meeting adjourned at 9:05. And so I think the meeting adjourned later than 9:05. If I recused at 9:05.
It definitely did. It definitely did.
Earlier than that. Okay, so.
I also was not present, and I think I was counted as present on the meeting
Yeah, that
minutes,
was-
but I was not there.
Okay, so
I move that minutes be accepted as amended.
okay, those are the two amendments.
Second.
Cheryl's time and that
Yep.
Linda wasn't there.
Yep.
Right.
All right, so we have a motion from Pete, second.
Yeah, those are good. Yeah, second, yeah.
So we have a motion from Pete, a second from Rob, maybe also a second from Jenny. Thank you. I need to do roll call since we have some remote members. So Rob,
Yes.
Linda.
Abstain, I was not there.
Yep. Kathleen,
Abstain, I was not there.
Wendy,
Yeah,
Jenny,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Cheryl.
Yes.
All right, so we have approved minutes of the June 11th meeting. All right, let's get into the review of the eligibility applications. I think the first up is Arthur Doyle in the Neponset Estuary. Arthur, welcome.
What is good?
Moral support.
Right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Arthur Doyle from the Conservation Commission. It's a pleasure to be here with John Cannon, the Conservation Commission Chair. We would like to extend to the CPC on behalf of the entire Conservation Commission, your investment in the Milton Milton River Estuary Project. You have received our report, and you've received for your consideration a follow-up application for an actionable recommendation from the study project. We have with us this evening two of our contracted partners from Apex Companies and its environmental partners group that conducted the survey engineering work and developed with the Concom the study's recommendations. They are Eric Kelly, principal at Apex Engineering, and Jamie Gillette, also an engineer and their project manager for the estuary study. We would like to walk you through the work accomplished and the initiatives proposed employing presentation materials. We've already had the written materials, and also we welcome your questions and advice at any time during the course of this evening's presentation and discussion. So at this point, I'd like to ask Eric and Jamie to join us, introduce themselves, and Jamie will put up the first frame.
Sorry, sir.
So,
I just want to make sure everybody can see the slide that I'm screen sharing.
Yes.
Yes.
Online we can, yes.
And in person.
Yes.
And, yeah, in the room we can.
Great, thank you. With that, my name is Jamie Villette. I'm a project manager at Apex Companies, and I've been working with my colleague Eric Kelly to design the conceptual design for the Neponset River Estuary Trail. Eric, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Jamie. Thank you, Arthur, for the introduction. So we're here tonight to kind of walk through the conceptual planning study that Jamie led as part of our team, working with Arthur and staff from Public Works and Town Hall and the Conservation Commission to kind of develop several plans for improving public access and education about the town lands off Granite Ave and on the south side of the Neponset River. So Jamie's going to step through the scope of work that we completed to date, the concepts were developed, and the sequencing of how design, permitting, and future construction have been considered. Jamie?
Thanks, Eric. So as Eric mentioned, this conceptual study, it's a multi-year initiative, and it aims to preserve the estuary as a natural resource, also rehabilitate the land for passive recreational opportunities, and enhance public access to the riverfront.
I'd also like to add to that your application notes not only open space and recreation, but also historic preservation, because as we've worked during the course of this past year, we found out that this area is a very historically rich part of the town of Milton. Jamie?
So with that, I just want to give you a little bit of background overview of the study area. So the area includes 4 parcels off Granite Ave behind the Cortland Circle and Riverside Ave residential neighborhoods. The town-owned land is outlined by the green boundary, yellow, and blue. And then while the orange boundary represents a portion of the privately owned land in Quincy, and this black dashed line represents the Quincy Milton town line. And just to note, the orange boundary is owned by Blue Cross Blue Shield. So overall, the land includes marsh and riverfront access, including 2 existing trails, one out to Black Rock and the other to Mount Hope Canal, which is shown by the red dashed lines.
Well, Jamie has his frame up, going back to that notation of history. I just mentioned when you see Mount Hope Canal, that was incorporated in 1842 by the Massachusetts State Senator for the purpose of building a canal and a wharf. It's a well-armored entity for those of you who have not seen it. And it is believed that it was part of the business proposition for the granite quarries in Quincy, out to Mount Hope Cemetery in Boston. On the far right-hand side, where you have what is now called Black Rock, that was an area where the first ferry across the Neponset River to Dorchester was established under the permission of Israel Stoughton, one of the community's founders, and the father of Governor Stoughton, and a man by the name of Glover, related to the Glover, who was one of the incorporators of the Mount Hope Canal, the several generations apart. There was a device that connected with the other side, which had a place known as Sling Point, and it was believed that materials were sent across the river by way of a rope sling. Mr. Wicklow was given the permission by Stoughton to have a penny ferry going from that point, which is now, interestingly enough, in Quincy, over to the Neponset. The line that Jamie has demarcated here between Milton and Quincy was not the original Quincy-Milton boundary. That was much further to your right, down to Sagamore Street, Hancock Street area of Quincy. And in 1885, the two towns agreed to petition the general court to reestablish the boundary to where it is now.
Was there an actual wharf that was built on Mount Hope?
That is Faulkner's Wharf that is at Black Rock, and Faulkner actually ran a flower enterprise. He had major greenhouses on Granite Avenue. And he and William, this is James Faulkner, and he and William Faulkner were among the petitioners to reestablish the boundary line. Granite Avenue was maintained by Quincy in part, and Hancock Street was maintained by Milton in part. So they decided to do a trade-off and separate the areas. A number of the petitioners, interestingly enough, appear to have been East Milton, now East Milton residents. The application before you concerns this map, which is from the 1885 history of Milton by Teal. And if you look sort of above center right, you will see the granite branch of the Old Colony Railway. That was a successor to, was succeeded rather by the New York, New Haven, and Hartford Railway, which ran until the 1950s. There was a line that went from Neponset. If you look at the train coming this way from Neponset, actually that Old Colony line was begun in South Boston in about 1844 and was finished in Plymouth in 18 months. See if we could do that today. And they in 1871 built this spur or branch coming from the Neponset, crossing over Granite Avenue, connecting onto the first railway in the United States, which carried granite from the Bunker Hill Quarry down to the Neponset River for the construction of the Bunker Hill Monument. And the train went up that original rail line into East Milton Square and on into West Quincy.
I see that town landing is here rather than where it is today.
The original town landing is Gulliver's Landing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting to see that.
So it's just, and that's just scratching the historical surface of this area.
Not tonight.
Thanks, Arthur. That was a great historical background on the area. So with that, one of the first steps of this study was to do a desktop analysis, as well as go out into the field to establish baseline site conditions in order for us to develop an initial concept plan. So with that, we worked with a surveyor who was able to establish the property, some of the property lines, and then from record information. And then we went out to the property to take a walk through the area and see where some of potential property encroachments exist today and where the town line boundary is. And we were able to even install some wooden stakes along the town line boundary. So this image that you see up on the screen, the red dots demarcate the existing bounds and monuments that are out there today. And then the green dots were where we installed wooden stakes, and as well as the red dots with a yellow circle. One thing to point out here is that you can see this orange line represents on this image the Milton Quincy line. So as you're headed out to Black Rock, there is wooden stakes out there designating that crossing over from Milton to Quincy, where you know, the end of the trail and Black Rock is within the Quincy boundary.
Excuse me, did you have any coordination with Quincy at all as you were talking about this?
Yes, in fact.
Yes, we did.
Meeting, Jamie, Eric, so I think John may have been involved with the engineer for the city of Quincy, a member of Quincy's planning staff, member of Quincy's Conservation Commission, and the naturalist for the city of Quincy.
Yeah, we held a visioning workshop during the portion of when we were starting to initially draft a concept plan in order to engage feedback from some key stakeholders like the city of Quincy and the Neponset River Watershed Association. There was an individual there from the association, as well as some other key players from Quincy, from the planning side, as well as Conservation Commission.
What about Blue Cross Blue Shield?
Blue Cross Blue Shield, we started to coordinate earlier because we had to coordinate property access into their portion of their owned parcel over the Quincy line. So we initiated coordination with Blue Cross Blue Shield prior to the surveyor's work. And then moving into the visioning workshop, since there was still coordination to be done between Milton and Quincy, they were not in attendance in that visioning workshop, so that we could form a plan as a team in order, you know, as next steps to contact them in order to start having a discussion on what you know, what this project entails, what it's going to look like, and how they could support you know, the town and Quincy, the further developing the trail out to Black Rock. So that is part of next steps of this study, or part of the design.
Rob has his hand raised.
What was that?
Rob has his
Rob.
hand.
Yeah, Rob has, I was sorry, I was on mute, Rob. I was calling on Rob, but I was on mute. Thank you, Julia.
Sorry, I have a few questions. One question is, the public accessibility to this project. So like I understand this as this is a neighborhood, and I'm always on the Neponset Trail, so I understand where the Neponset Trail is. But what is the opportunities here to connect to the park? I believe there's the Neponset Park, which is just like north of this site in Dorchester, as well as the Neponset Trail. So I guess I have three questions. One is public accessibility, right, to get here. Another one, just connectivity to any existing paths. And then the third one is, have you thought through any, in regards to the public accessibility, if there is anything like parking or something, like if the public is to come out here, like how would they be encouraged to come out here? Because this is an existing neighborhood, and I could just see that as could be a potential problem. So is there like wayfinding or something, and to be able to connect it to the Neponset Trail, which is only if you go down Granite, there is like a little parking lot there, like a pocket parking lot. So I'm just wondering if you guys thought through any of that.
Yep, I appreciate all those questions. I think we're jumping ahead a little bit because we will be answering some of those as I present the conceptual design. So could we table those questions and then come back to them if I haven't answered them towards the end of the presentation after we go through the conceptual design?
Sure.
Great, thanks, Rob. So I'm just right now touching on the initial baseline site conditions. And then we'll jump into, that pedestrian connectivity and designations and signage, because those are definitely key elements to the design for this area. Once we designated the property bounds, Milton Conservation Commission went out and installed some signage within the town-owned parcels. So I'm going to hand it off to Arthur to just touch base a little bit about this.
Yes, thank you. We've had an initiative over the course of the past, I'd say 5 years, John, to sign Milton Conservation owned properties. These are all town lands, of course, but they're under the care, custody and control of the Conservation Commission. And this lets the public know that is the case. 3 signs were placed in this area. One at the head of the rail trail. This is at the intersection of Thistle in Granite Avenue. And if you look just to the left of the sign, you have a clear shot of where that old railroad line, that Granite branch of the old colony, and then the New York related and Hartford Railway went. There's another one at the end of Thistle Avenue, at the beginning of the path to Mount Hope Canal. There's been a parking area there, and there's another one down on the riverside. We hope that these signs are supportive of the neighborhood. We have, as well as the natural resources, we've had conversations that we'll get into in response to Rob's question with a number of the neighbors, but not all of them yet. But we do have a plan to do that. And with respect to protection, the marsh is a very vulnerable area. It's extremely valuable as a natural and ecological resource, but also as a climate resource, because salt marshes absorb greenhouse gases 10 times faster than an acre of salt marsh will absorb greenhouse gases 10 times faster than an acre of mature forest. The signs are also hopefully going to help redirect people off the marshland. It's being abused in some respects. The marsh suffers in a second way, and that is from the Baker Dam. Ordinarily, this salt estuary would be replenished by silt coming down the Neponset River. And as the tide would come in and be deposited up on the salt marsh, as you'll see in most estuaries up in the Ipswich area, down in Cape Cod, and so on down the line. Because of the dam, we have lost 2 centuries of silt replenishing the salt marsh, which makes its preservation all the more important.
Arthur, we've got a full agenda, so you get moved around.
Yeah.
Could I just add one thing, Peter?
Absolutely, no,
But Rob, I wanted to respond to your public access comment where, and again, we're still in the concept stage, at least in the number of different phases. But handicapped access is a big deal. So we've asked for plans that will show a pathway that's sufficient to sustain a wheelchair access. And people appreciate this because that's the way the pathway surrounds Turner's Pond. That's the plan for Hope's Pond. And we're trying to include that into this plan. So public access includes handicapped access. That's
fantastic.
All right, I'm gonna talk about what we've all eagerly been waiting for, the conceptual design. So the project study area was divided into the following 3 priority areas for phase planning and budgeting. We have phase 1 is the rail trail delineated in the purple. Phase 2 is the Black Rock Trail improvements delineated in the green. And phase 3 is the Mount Hope Canal Trail and parking area. But today we're going to present to you phase 1 because that's what we're looking at implementing first. So with that, the rail trail will begin at Granite Avenue, following the former railway corridor adjacent to President's Golf Course. The new trail alignment will connect to the existing Black Rock Trail, which I'll show on the next screen, and also Riverside Access Drive. This segment of the trail is proposed to be about 5 feet wide and a 1/4 mile long. It's about a 1/2 mile to Black Rock. So this is halfway out to the Black Rock point. The trail extension terminates, I want to show, terminates at we have an option to show a trail extension as well to connect to the Quincy trail as well. But for phase 1 for budgeting right now, we're just looking at the rail trail from Granite Ave to the existing Black Rock Trail. So I
Jamie,
think
can you just explain the 1/4 mile versus 1/2 mile? You said it's 1/2 mile. If I understood that right, it's 1/2 mile to Black Rock, but you're asking for funding for a 1/4 mile of trail?
for the first phase 1, yeah, phase 1 will be a 1/4 mile of trail to the existing paved access driveway off of Riverside Avenue, right? If you can see where my mouse is hovering over.
Okay, so that means it doesn't go out as far as Granite?
It goes
goes-
from Granite.
That's right, Tom.
Okay, I'm just a little confused about the 1/2 mile, 1/4 mile thing. I'm not quite following that.
Tom, it goes from Granite to where the trail goes out to Black Rock. Well,
Yes.
we walked that time we were out there,
Yes,
but it doesn't take the trail out to Black Rock at this point.
I get that. So I just want to know what the so is the 1/4 mile from Granite to the intersection of Black Rock?
Correct.
Okay, all right. I'm good. I'm good. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So I have a question about
Super
this,
clear.
what's the redesignated shared parking area? 5 to 10 spaces?
So I'll get to that. So it was important to create a parking area that was away from the residential neighborhood so that we could direct the majority of the pedestrian activity along the rail trail and focus the connectivity out to Black Rock. And so we're proposing to redesignate a portion of the existing parking area across from Thistle Avenue, and then connectivity would be through there. Right now, there's a fence, so we would install a pedestrian gate and then tie in the connectivity across there's a existing crosswalk, and then the trailhead would start right at the corner of Thistle Avenue and Granite Ave, which would include signage to demarcate this is the start of the trail. Along the trail, the 5-foot wide trail, we show also resting areas, which will promote further accessibility, as well as revegetating the area, because this portion of the town-owned land along the rail trail, we've observed some property encroachments. So there would be some enhancements there.
Who owns that parking lot land?
We do.
The town does? Or
It's
the-
it's a state.
No, the parking lot across Granite Avenue is state, that's the parking lot. And
Yeah.
there's a crosswalk from the intersection of Granite Avenue and Thistle across Granite Avenue for easy access to and from the parking lot.
And we have rights to use that parking lot.
It's wide open to the general public.
Okay.
We even find people from other countries who drive down and spend the night there.
Now, when you say easy access, though, granted, that is a busy street, right? So crossing that.
I've done it.
Existing crosswalk.
Yeah, okay, just noting.
Yeah,
I'll just say that, I tested it when we were putting the sign up at that location. I crossed it 4 times. And about 75% of the time, as soon as I entered the crosswalk, the traffic on Granite Avenue stopped. Very similar to the traffic pattern on the other side of the bridge in the Punset River, when people were coming down the bike trail
But then there's a
and
light
crossing
there.
over. Same behavior
But
pattern.
there's a light.
well, except they've got a light.
I'm still here.
Yeah.
Very good. So the proposed budget, does that include engineering, permitting and construction of this first phase?
Jamie, do you want to comment on that?
Sure, so the budget does include engineering services, and so design and permitting for the first phase of the rail trail. And it does include a 35% contingency because we are in the conceptual design phase. So the next phase to continue the design of the rail trail would be a preliminary design, and then a final design, where at that point we, getting close to final design, would look to permit the work in order to get to construction.
So what's the budget number? Sorry, I don't have it in front of me.
275.
275?
So do you have any idea, with phase 2, what the total would be?
I don't have that available right now, but I will when we finalize the technical memo for this project.
So can you just quickly, so 275, what is that by? Is that buying design? It's got a 35% contingency number in it. It's a path. Is it what exactly is the total outlook
Jamie?
for that 275?
Jamie, I can jump in.
Okay, sounds good.
So the 275 is to design all elements of the project. It does not include permitting of phase 2 or phase 3 because those will be much more complicated by both the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 91, and potentially 401 water quality certificate programs. But the 275 is covering the design to get to construction documents for the 3 phases, but would only include permitting for phase 1, the rail trail.
So this is just design fee 275 for this?
Correct.
Oh,
No, it includes construction of phase one.
Yeah, does it? Does it or doesn't? it?
No, he's saying it's just design fees. Correct, Eric?
You're supposed to have.
Jamie, bring up the table.
I'm not,
So can I also, so just asking as a question, another piece, so as another piece of this, because it's a public project, it'll have to go out to bid, right?
Correct. Yes,
Um,
correct.
so you guys are obviously heavily involved into this, and I would imagine you'd be one contractor, you know, one person this would potentially go out to. But I guess just for the board's sake, you'll have to realize that, you know, if this project is eventually approved for funding, it would have to go out to procurement.
Just to be clear, we're a professional engineering services firm. We're not a construction firm.
Well, so that's what I'm asking. Is this project for your 275? Is it for design or is it for construction?
This is for design of the three, phase one of the rail trail. As you can see in the screen Jamie's sharing, the
Yeah.
construction subtotal is 314 with an additional, so project subtotal is 524. This is for design and permitting to get you through phase one and design of the other options, but we'd be seeking construction funding through other mechanisms.
Wait, so can you just review? So what's up on our screen right now? You said it's 274.
Yes,
which is the design fee for all three?
The full project would be designed and then it would be constructed and permitted in phases. Because phase two and phase three include, next steps would be coordinating with Blue Cross Blue Shield because no one has property access to do any development out there. So you can't permit or construct phase two. Phase three is subject to additional wetlands and waterways permitting. So that would have to be handled after the design is taken care of.
So get me to the 274.75 number with these numbers that you have. You have 100, 110.
Yeah. No, these numbers are this is just to present phase one as to what those construction opinion of cost is. This is not a table for the 275. So these numbers do not add to 275. This is three options that was in the material that Arthur provided, separate with the Conservation Commission. I don't have that table here in front of me.
All right. I guess that's what's confusing.
Yeah.
So we'll need some clarity between now and the final application on exactly where the 275 is going. I hear you, it's going for design of the three phases. But you know, this chart adds up to 315, not 275. So
this is just to be clear, this is three different options for how to complete phase one. It is not options. It is not phase 1, 2, and 3.
Okay.
But the challenge is but in this subtotal you have design and permitting, right? But they only add up to 210 or something, that at least from the numbers that I see, and maybe you have a contingency there on top of that to get you to. I have no idea, but I think it's hard to tell your numbers that you have up on the screen to what you're asking for CPC money. And to divide that out, so that just for the board's sakes, it would be a lot easier just so that your numbers and math could add up, so that we understand what we would be potentially funding, because right now it's difficult to understand. So you know, because you have design in one hand and you have construction on the other, right? And so I think it would just be easy, and you know, just for the board's sake too, what you're asking for this phase is just design for 3 phases of a project. If that is that's what you're.
Yes. Design and permitting for phase 1, design of phases 2 and 3.
Gotcha.
Okay. Thanks.
Construction would be a separate request.
Can I ask another question? So 275 for this board is a lot of money, right? So in a year, I will say, we give out $1 million, right? And so what I'm wondering is there a way potentially to divide this project out where potentially, you're going to phase this over time, but can you take small bites out of this? Let's say, could this be funded over a phase one and you do a design, break out your design fee for your phase one and potentially go ask for the funding for that and then phase this out over time. So that's just a question back out to you guys. So could you bite that? Could you, kind of bring that down?
I would, yes, in the simplest form of it, yes. In that table you just saw, phase one's design and permitting is a much lower number, but I would defer to Arthur and John as the kind of proponents of the funding requests but yes, it easily can be sequenced both for design and construction into smaller tranches.
That ties into the earlier comment about this extending over multiple years. This project will outlive me.
Yeah.
And it's so
I don't, I'm not gonna take that bet, Arthur. I'm not gonna take.
And then
to Rob's earlier question for a moment. Rob, we have notified all of the abutters for any of the work that we did there. The work that was done last December was the surveying, and the work that was done in April with putting in the stakes and so on down the line. Without any negative comments received from anybody. We've had contact with a number of the residents in there as we've been doing our work. They have welcomed the notion of a neighborhood gathering to do what you were seeking earlier on. And before that, we would like to also consider having, maybe as part of that, joint meeting of the CPC and the Conservation Commission with that entire neighborhood area for those who wish to attend. People are some of the people that we've talked to have expressed great pleasure with what's going on because they were afraid that there was going to be building down in the marshland. And they just are very, very happy that it's a conservation area. And there are some people who are very pleased to know that human traffic will be managed in the area, that people will be able to enjoy the natural resource as much as those people who are abutters do. And with respect to human traffic, it already exists. I'll send around this and get you an electronic copy of it. This is a footpath out to Black Rock on January 15th of this year, just to give you an idea how low traffic that area is already.
So Arthur, one question. So this path, would this be like a new pedestrian crosswalk that goes over Granite Ave?
It's an existing.
I don't think we can go that far yet, because that's a state, isn't that a state road, Granite, that.
It's an existing crosswalk.
I didn't get the question.
So
He was asking if there is a crosswalk already from the end of the cells to the other end.
From the parking lot to Grant.
There is a crosswalk there. That's the one that I mentioned
Yeah.
that I had taken on 4 occasions, crossing, making 8 crossings on 4 occasions.
Oh, okay. So that exists today.
Yes.
Yes, it does.
Okay. Is there any like lights up or anything? I'm just, I'm very familiar with the one down the road in Neponset, and there's obviously a traffic signal and such.
There are no lights there. No.
But that's down a ways, right?
Right,
Right.
over the river.
We kind of moved this.
Yeah, we gotta.
We gotta move.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, we need to, Jamie, is there anything you need to present to us? Because we're running way behind time here, so, and
covered it now.
you will get a second chance at this in terms of the full application round.
Understood. Thank you very much, everyone,
Yeah.
for giving us the time to speak tonight.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank
Thank
you
you
for
all.
taking the time, Arthur, John, Jamie, Eric, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone.
Thank you all.
All right, let's call on Jeff Stone for the Brookwalk project. Jeff is in the room, right?
Yes,
Yeah, okay, great. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, thank you. Let's see, which one is going? Oh, it's over. Oh, that's good. There we go. Okay, thank you for inviting me to talk about the current request for the Milton Brook Walk. I'm Jeff Stone. I'm identified as the citizen advocate
yeah.
in the fresh report, which less than 2 weeks ago, we finally got the feasibility study from PHP. Have you folks seen it yet?
Yeah. Yes.
So you have all. Oh, Tom, you distributed this or how did,
It was included.
I didn't know that everybody got it. I'm really glad that you got it.
I think Julia put it on in our, our folder.
You did. Okay. So that is. I want to give John Kiernan a report, copy of it. You'll have to wait. So I wanted to call your attention before talking about our current request to the next steps, because the current request sort of is tied into the next request. And by the way, I want to mention that the estuary walk, it's so good to see something else connected to the Neponset River. And I think something that town administrators can talk about also has connections. So we are really connecting to our surrounding bodies of water and natural opportunities here. So I made a few copies of these next steps. If anybody wants to have a handy copy, I don't have steps that you can share. There's one hand of that. Yeah. So we're at the point now that we've got the feasibility study report that we can move ahead with the next steps that I certainly wanted to do as the resident advocate here. One of the most important ones is to build a Friends of the Milton Brook Walk. There were several dozen people that at the time I submitted the original request for the feasibility grant that indicated they were very supportive of the idea of the Brook Walk and listed themselves in support of the feasibility study grant, which thank you very much again to the CPC for awarding the project that grant. So I can go back to those people and do a much further outreach and thinking what I can do as a person who's not a professional in this field. I'm a great outdoors advocate, hiking advocate, backpacker on the Appalachian Trail and stuff like that. But as far as being an architect or a construction and design person, that's for people who are like some of the members of this committee and VHP and other firms. But with the establishment of a Friends of the Milton Brook Walk, I'm hoping that some of the skills that I don't have, I have an MBA degree, I'm not an attorney, but that some of the skills that would be very useful for a advocacy group in town will be included in the Friends of the Milton Brook Walk. So that's to me an important component to help drive the possibility of actually achieving and making this vision real. Other things that I can do are outreach to Milton boards and commissions, and such as the Conservation Commission, which I'd love to meet with the Concom soon. I've already outreached in the past to the local public schools. When we had our initial meeting with the town administrator, the superintendent, Peter Burris was here and very supportive. That component, if you don't know, is for the schools, public schools, to be involved in designing signage for the seasonal flora and fauna, as well as history that may be connected with the route of the treadway of the trail. I can do the outreach to people in the schools and the teachers, and also, of course, with the Friends of the Milton Brook Walk, I'm hoping that we will have lots of people say, I can do that, hey, I can do that, I can do that. NEPRA, I'm a member of NEPRA and the Quonset River Watershed Association, so I can reach out to Ian.
Mm.
And then there was a meeting with, somebody from NEPRA, I forget his name, and people from, DCR and, Metropolitan.
Metropolitan Planning Council?
Yeah, we like to see.
Yeah, that may be something that Nick is gonna talk about, the Milton Greenway or stronger connections to the Blue Hills from the city.
Oh, right, right,
along the
right, right,
parkway,
right.
which, you know, will intersect, you know, in the Milton Brook walking. So that's some of the background, and some of the things I can do as a non-professional in this field, but as a passionate advocate for this project. So let's see, if we move to. So first of all, any questions right now about the findings, budget findings up there that I can answer? Having seen the previous presentation, we've got, see that would be helpful to have VHB here to possibly field some of your technical questions. But if you have any questions about the different segments, actually, can you put up, is that the first one? That's great. I actually have 5. Yeah. So that's the first one.
Jeff, I think my question would be, more specifically about what you're proposing to do with the funds from this grant.
Right.
And also, are you seeing managing it yourself? Continuing to manage this yourself rather than, you know, trying to turn it over to a town board or something?
No, yourself, no, myself only, no.
No, but I mean, you're seeking the funds, or you're gonna spend the funds with your consultants to do this, as you did with this phase. There's not, the funds aren't going to a town board or anything like that.
To be,
A town board.
no.
The funds would be coming to
Whoever's
you.
gonna perform the, right, whoever's gonna perform the functions that are listed in possible next steps that we have.
Right.
Can you go forward with the next slide? Go right to the last one, not the last one now, but the, whatever the next one is. You can order it.
Attachments.
No, it's not attachments. I don't think it's- This is a separate file. It's not always. I sent you, where'd you get this picture? Where did this picture was? It is in a separate folder. TBC.
No, that's on my stuff.
Okay. It was in its own folder.
No, go ahead. It's breaking it down into, no, it's actually.
Well, he's doing that, the application says the 30,000 would be applied,
There.
combined with other grants, towards the cost of progressing the project, such as 15 to 25% design cost estimates for a survey, planning trail and boardwalk, signage, crosswalks, traffic planning and design. There's a lot of things listed.
Right,
So,
but
is that
more
what you're trying to get at?
specifically,
Yeah.
more specifically what this money would go for.
So back.
And there's no idea sort of what the overall cost might be.
Yeah, I think it's early for that.
Yeah, I think it's really,
Decision.
it's exciting to see it this far.
Yeah,
It was an idea in the master plan, you remember that?
Yeah.
13, 14.
well, Jeff's been pushing this for 20 years.
Yeah.
I think VHB did it. Jeff, I think VHB did a terrific job in its
Oh.
analysis,
Great.
coming up and looking with concepts. It sounds like you had a lot of coordination. So I think, you know, rather than going through that information, I guess, you know, more specifically, how you would see the use of this next round of
Well, I
grants
just want
to advance
reference
things.
this slide.
Yeah.
Right, this is the route. This is approximately 3 miles from Ewing Skating Lane to the river. And the top segment is segment 1 at the top. That's from Brook Hill. Is it called Brook Hill Road?
Yeah.
Brook Hill, whatever, to School Street. Glover to School Street. And actually from the segment It's the part that runs from School Street to Glover School. And that is Conservation Commission property. And we are proposing to probably build a, so we thought, and it was through the advice in our initial meeting with the town administrator, that it would be a good idea not to try to build the whole thing, but to build it segment by segment, to prioritize segments. So we're suggesting here, can you go to the next one now? The river C is redeemed after this. We're suggesting to pick this segment from Glover School to School Street to do the work that is in next one after that. Those are the different segments. Okay, and that's a overhead of the same segment. And let's go to the last one, because I know you want to get out of here at some point. Last one. Wow. Can you mouse that? Yeah, for screen. Okay. What do you- Okay, so there are three options here. This can show the title. There, okay, that's good enough. Okay, so this is what VHB basically did at my request for segment 2 between Glover School and School Street. So they gave me three options. Now I have specified 30,000 in the eligibility application. A question that I have, important question for you folks, is do we have to stick with that figure, or can we possibly ask for more to do more here? You don't have to answer that yet, okay? Let me go through, unless you want to.
So you're talking the section from Glover School to School Street,
Yes,
that you're proposing a boardwalk,
yes, yes,
and you're thinking that might be the first phase?
yes. And an accessible boardwalk. One component which doesn't really jump out very often in this report is, I think it's very important that we create accessibility for people with limited mobility. And I have been in touch with several companies that manufacture or distribute these motorized wheelchairs with very large wheels that are made for people with limited mobility. And I would love to see that for our residents, anybody else perhaps who comes here, but our residents who have very limited mobility to be able to go all the way around Turner's Pond, because that's what this connects to. And around Glover, that's the next segment, but around Turner's Pond, around Glover, and all the way to School Street and back. For people who have virtually no mobility or very limited mobility. So parts of the Brook Walk are lumpy and roots, and some are smooth, you know, so some could be improved, some are difficult to improve. But this, if we build this new section on this Conservation Commission property with a boardwalk, it could be made very smooth and very navigable for people who need accessibility. So I would love to see that.
Well, I think, and as a real estate attorney, then it seems to me, it's best to do your first project on property that the town already owns. Because a lot of the other stuff is private property.
Not a lot of it, some of it.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you should pick,
Right.
it seems to me, pick the one that you're not gonna have the biggest fight with.
That's what we think, yeah.
And then that makes it sort of a flagship program for people to see what it looks like. And then make private property owners more amenable to it, if they can see what it looks like. So I applaud your selection of that segment, because I think trying to do it on private land or something like that first would not be a good idea.
All right,
Thanks for the.
Rob has his hand up.
So just one question. You had asked about the, increasing design budget. Are these numbers coming from your designer? Where are you getting
These are
the numbers?
ballpark- These are ballpark numbers from VHB.
So I think one word of advice would be is, I would say when you go back to the funding application, is to get a more hardline number for it. And I would always say, build within that what you can. So I would go back to them and ask them for a more hardline number for what it includes. And then secondly, one thing you may want to consider for, at least for this board, as you go through, is a cost estimate. If you have a cost consultant or something give you a number to figure out what this project would cost, any of these phases, that might be helpful. And it might be only a few $1,000s, but it would help, I think, in future funding raises. If you come back for more money, it would help you and help the committee understand what the budget's going to be, and they could put a contingency in there and et cetera. But I think it's always helpful to understand the budget of the project.
Right, so back to my question, could you go down to option 3 a little bit so you can see the big number at the bottom? So you see the first option is 30 to 50, the second one is 50 to 200, and the third one is 400 to 700. And this is for that one segment. So are we limited in the final application, the full application due in September, to the 30 that I put, or can we ask for somewhat more, if, and of course, attempt to justify it?
Yeah,
Well,
I
go ahead, Tom.
I believe I'd have to consult the historical record here. I believe there are some eligibility applications that we certainly have had eligibility applications change the amount downward, sometimes on our advice. But we've also, I believe, had some eligibility applications come in with a different number that is higher. So we don't necessarily encourage that, but I think it is allowed. But yeah, we'd have to, obviously we're going to evaluate the project on its merits, and as Rob said to the previous applicants, we have only $1 million and we're really trying to stretch this budget as far as we can. So I wouldn't get dollar signs in your eyes. But
yeah.
But I think it's allowed to, to adjust it upwards if you felt like that's something you wanted to do.
Yeah, I think Jeff, to just couple that what Tom said, it's nice to see some of these projects, and this is another project that I think could be phased. I think you have a number of different options. Could you phase this over a amount of years or whatever to figure out how you would make some of these investments? I think that might be a good way to look at this project. And then, with this, I think the number can change, Tom. I think we have done that in the past, but just understanding our budget, right, on a yearly basis is tough. I mean, there's many applications. So if you had to, could you break this down into like a phase piece, right? Of like, hey, maybe this is what we can bite off right now. And then, continue to, you could continue to come back and see how, what we could do over time. But I think some of these projects are just so big in nature that's what we're going to really, that's what you have to look at, I think, as you kind of go forward.
Yep.
So, one thing I would suggest is if there's a certain amount of this work that would help be a leverage to get other grant money, then it would be worthwhile to know how much you would need to spend, what level of work you would need to do to help leverage the grant money, because this is obviously going to be, I mean, I love the idea. It's obviously multi-phase and very costly over time. So I actually even think a ballpark by phase of like this one doing a boardwalk. The last one was any indication the boardwalk was the most expensive scheme. So if there's an idea that some of these are less expensive, so just kind of a general idea of the whole project, how long might that take? What kind of, I know the budget's gonna be very preliminary, but
But they're talking about a construction
I see
cost
that.
of 4 to 5 million
that.
just for this boardwalk section. That's
Yeah,
way beyond.
for
what
sure.
this town Could be thinking of investing in the next 20 years for a project like this.
So that's why
So
it brings me
they-
back to the grant funding, because we
Right.
know, I think it was the Eustis Estate that was able to leverage. And maybe it was even up at the observatory, you're able to leverage this funding to get grant funding. And sometimes it's a match. And sometimes, you know, it can be a piece of a whole. If there's a friends, you know, group that forms, maybe the friends can help fundraise, maybe someone can be a grant writer. But even, you know, if there's kind of that call, what you would need in the friends, I would think a grant writer is a big one, as far as, and then some of the other maybe more technical. But my main point is to think about how much you need to do in order to leverage getting other funding.
And the more tangible, the better.
But I mean, I look at this and wetlands flagging and soil test borings, you can't really do proper cost estimating without that information.
Right.
So that to me is and a field survey, so those seem like things that you should put in at this point. And I don't know if that puts you closer to 200 or closer to 50, but that's the sort of thing, if you got those estimates and itemize them, so like what's included in 30 to 50, what's included in 50 to 200, if you can kind of break it down a little bit more, because that way it would give us a little bit better idea of how much we could help with and how far that would get you.
Yeah, I think Jeff too, just to go back to that point, I think you're probably in the 50 to whatever, your option two. But
Yeah.
to the point, if you get a cost estimator on board for this, for the long-term like plan, then it would be easier to like figure out a phase plan and such, to figure out like what the long-term planning is for it. Because right now they're just kind of ballpark numbers, right? And then at least the cost estimator will come in and say, okay, here's a contingency over so many years, et cetera. And then maybe there's got to be some other funding, possibilities through this, like Cheryl's saying.
I
I
think
love.
it's to have cost estimator, I think this is just very conceptual at this point. I had a very different idea, and everybody's gonna moan. John has got $40,000 to study the feasibility of accessibility around Pope's Pond. I don't know where that project is or whatever. But I don't know if you have a consultant on board or where you are with that one, John, but my thought was to make a real difference someplace at this phase, to take the plan from Canton Avenue to Blue Hill Parkway and combine work, BHB's work or whatever, which John's doing, and not only get the feasibility, but design for the pathway around Pope's Pond. He's got money for a pedestrian bridge. We're gonna be putting a playground there and Beverly Park right by there. And so to me, if you concentrated to get a first phase of this thing done and work in this corridor around Pope's Pond, so to really see an improvement, that won't be a real high cost improvement, not $4 million. I think that could be, personally, I think that could be a feasible project that could get off the ground and, coordinate with the playground at Beverly Park and the work that John's doing at Pope's Pond, and we could get a piece of something done.
So, to your point, Pete, I walk, if I'm looking at the segments.
Yep.
Segments 5, 6, and 7 frequently.
5,
And
6, and okay.
So it's along the brook,
Mhm.
around Pope's Pond over to Canton Ave
Mhm.
and where Beverly Park would be.
Yeah.
And, some of that I know will be improved, but I do think even the portion along the brook there wouldn't require as much construction work.
Mhm.
So it would be interesting to get an idea. And I don't-
Combining with the money that
Yeah.
John's got and, maybe you could get a design of that path for that whole range and I think that would have a reasonable construction cost that,
I should
could
say-
conceivably
said 5,
be
6,
funded.
not 7.
Right, I could see doing
Five and
that and
six,
having
not
the
seven.
signage there, so people get a glimpse of
Yeah.
what this can be across town, you know, you could talk about the yellow warblers that are in the bushes near the.
Yeah, all that stuff.
And there are yellow
Yeah.
warblers there, because I walk there. that's huge.
But taking on the most capital intensive part of the project at a first phase, I think is pretty difficult.
Yeah, I
And-
didn't realize it was the most capital intensive.
So the other interesting thing is, I think DCR is doing a link on the parkway to get folks to the Blue Hills. So this idea of.
They're going out Truman. Park.
Yeah,
They're going to
Truman.
Truman,
Truman.
it's not going down?
No,
Okay.
No, it's over Truman.
Okay. Because the bike path is on the, I mention it because I also ride that bike path to get down to the Neponset Trail. And also in segment 5, there's that crossing behind the high school at the lower field there. And that's attractive already for a lot of students, right? So there will be students who come from West Milton.
I think we
right
didn't know
around
which side of the
five.
brook, which side of the brook we want to go on, but the more traveled side is where the houses are, in the neighborhood, that's much more traveled by people. But you can also walk on the other side of the brook.
right.
So I'm gonna try to
Mm.
bring this to a close. And I think you've heard a number of good suggestions, ideas. It's ultimately your project. We look forward to seeing, assuming we vote on eligibility, which I assume we will, but we'll look forward to seeing a full application in the fall.
Okay, thank you very much.
You've got some good
Thank you.
feedback here.
Thank you, John.
All right.
Tom, before you start, I'm gonna
Yes.
recuse myself on the next one. Can somebody, I'm going downstairs.
Yeah.
Yep.
Don't let me down there too long, okay?
Okay. All right. Thank you, Cheryl.
Where will we find you downstairs? Just in the,
I'll have my phone.
okay.
Somebody come message me.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So the 648 Canton Ave Affordable Housing or 40B project proposal, Joseph and Lou are here. So why don't you feel free to give a short presentation welcome and thank you, and why don't you describe what you're proposing?
Sure. Well, thank you very much, committee members, for hearing us tonight. Can everyone hear me all right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect, great. Well, once again, thank you, and we will be mindful of time. We'll try to keep our presentation pretty short here. So I will just share my screen and pull up some slides that we prepared, and we'll run through them pretty quickly. Okay, can everyone see that?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. So this is for a 40B project at 648 to 652 Canton Avenue. It's a project that was approved by the Milton Zoning Board back in 2023. It's a total of 116 rental units, of which 25% of the units are affordable to households earning 80% or less of the area median income, which equates to 29 of the 116 units. So on this title page here, you can see the site plan. It's a mix of townhouses and flat style apartments located on the 7.7 acre site. So just for a little bit of neighborhood context, so the site here consists of 2 properties that are currently holding single family homes. As I mentioned, it's a total of about 7.7 acres. And you can see it's located really in the heart of Milton. It's walking distance to Milton High School, directly abuts the Winter Valley Residences, which is another affordable multifamily project. It's close to Town Hall, the Milton Police Department, the hospital, and the public library as well. So as I mentioned, there's a variety of uses and building typologies in the immediate neighborhood. for this particular project, as we mentioned, it's permitted under Chapter 40B, so 25% of the units are required to be affordable. Where we're seeking the CPA funding is it's our goal to try to set aside some of those units at deeper affordability levels, which we've proposed to set aside some units at 50% AMI, which are significantly more affordable than 80% AMI units. And I'll pull up a rent matrix on the next slide to show just kind of what that difference is. So understanding that the committee does have limited funds, we've requested $500,000, which does not partially fill the gap that's created by moving down to that 50% AMI limit. But we believe that we can fill the rest of that gap through developer equity and other sources. So just in the total context, this is going to be over a $60 million project. So the request of $500,000, while we understand it's large relative to the annual funding of the committee, it is a very small percentage of the overall project costs. And particularly given the magnitude of creating 116 units, all of which will count towards Milton's subsidized housing inventory. We think it's a good use of funds and something that will really benefit the community of Milton.
And this really, just as Joe's going to get into, this is specifically to bring that deeper affordability levels to the project. It's aside from the overall construction budget, that's a function of just an increased need for cash flow from an equity and debt standpoint.
So on my screen here, you can see what that difference looks like. So essentially, if the project were to move forward without CPA funding, just with the statutorily required 25% of units at 80% of area median income, you can see where my cursor is here, what the monthly rents are for 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. So even an affordable rental unit in Milton, the monthly rent for a 1 bedroom is almost $2,500 a month. For a 2 bedroom, it's almost $3,000 a month. And for a 3 bedroom, it's almost $3,400. And the corresponding income limits are to the side there, $99,000 for a 1.5 person household, $119,000 for a 3 person household, and $137,000 for a 4.5 person household. So what I've highlighted on the chart to the right of this is the income limits and the rents for those 50% AMI units. And again, this is what that $500,000 of CPA funding would be helping to subsidize. And so as you can see, the rents are significantly more affordable. A 1 bedroom is $1,550 a month versus the $2,500. A 2 bedroom's $1,861 versus the almost $3,000, and then a 3 bedroom is $2,150 a month versus the $3,440 at 80% AMI. And likewise, the income limits, so those are the incomes to which this rent is affordable, are much deeper. So we think that we're able to target a much broader section of incomes and households, bringing in more diversity into the project and bringing in the ability for people who otherwise couldn't even afford the 80% AMI income rents to have the opportunity to live in this project and live in the town of Milton. So that's really the key for why we're seeking the CPA funding. And getting back to that gap that we were talking about, that's simply a function of what our cap rate is on the project. So basically, by earning $900 less per month on the 1 bedroom units, $1,100 less per month on the 2 bed units, and $1,300 a month less on the 3 bed units, that reduces the amount of permanent debt that the project can support, which is what creates that $930,000 funding gap, which we're proposing to partially fill via CPA funding. And I know I've just spit out a lot of information quickly, so certainly feel free to stop me at any time if you have questions or want to dig into any of that further.
So just a quick question of clarification. So this is over what period of time? If you figure 20, like the 6 units, divided by the 500,000, that's, it would be 7.5 years, 7.5 years of savings, is that correct?
No, but the restrictions, they would record a restriction on the project as they are required to do. Full disclosure, Kathleen O'Donnell, I'm the chair of the Board of Appeals, which issued the permit for this, but I did not sit on this panel. So I did not participate in the decision-making on this. But the permits require an affordable housing restriction.
Yeah,
And so the restriction will be in place perpetually.
but the CPC request is just for 7.5 years, is that
Or,
correct?
no,
No, 1 year.
it's 1 year to get the money now. It's not 7.5 years. It's a
Correct.
$5,000 request
One
to
time.
us
For one.
to pay them one time. So they then record a affordable housing restriction that restricts those units to 50% as opposed to 80%
Yeah.
area median income. So it's not an ongoing request, it's a one-time as part of the financing for this project.
That is correct, Kathleen. And the reason that works out that way is because our debt is amortizing over time. So essentially, lower rents in 1 year. Throughout the life of the loan, the reduced rent would be made up by that one-time grant of CPA funding. It's not an ongoing request.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Rob?
Yeah, so I know we spoke about this at the last meeting, but what I appreciate this project. However, in the past, the CPC has funded the Affordable Housing Trust in Milton. And so often, because it's almost just second nature to us, because it's not in the CPC's best interest to usually make that assumption, that I don't know what the board's going to feel. I know we spoke a little bit about it last time, Tom.
Yep.
But I think and I don't know where we go from here, but I know, for instance, Joe, the Winter Valley across the street did something similar where they were looking to get some funding for more affordability within their project. And what the CPC did was say, hey, yes, of course, this committee supports that, but the Affordable Housing Trust in Milton is better at addressing the issue. So I think, and Tom, you can correct me if I'm wrong and you see how the board feels about that. But I think typically that's what we would do, would say, hey, we appreciate your application, but this committee typically gives a third of our money, right, to the Affordable Housing Trust, and they continue to build up on it. And then the Affordable Housing Trust is usually in a better position than we are to make a decision on funding such applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's helpful context, Rob.
Yeah, and we did have that discussion, and we wanted to hear you out because it's helpful for us as we deliberate about that. And we basically make these decisions at the end of having seen all the projects in front of us, so that we can fairly evaluate. But that is a precedent we set at the Winter Valley project most recently, when Winter Valley came to us initially independently, and then we encouraged a conversation between the Affordable Housing Trust and Winter Valley, and that ultimately resulted in the Affordable Housing Trust funding a $400,000 project at Winter Valley, or a $400,000 subsidy for this larger 36 unit project at Winter Valley. So they are the experts. Full disclosure, I serve on the Affordable Housing Trust. Well, I'm the designee. That has been the pattern of recent decisions, at least, that this committee has made. So we may ask you to do that. That could be a very plausible outcome from our conversation, but
I
it is
guess
helpful.
just
It is helpful to hear this,
Yeah.
at least for ourselves too. One question, and Rob, I'll turn it back to you for
no worries.
a question, but one question: have you had experience doing this at other 40B projects? I'm assuming you've developed other projects. Have you had experience in, from a marketing point of view, from other, what has been your experience if you've done this elsewhere?
Correct. Yes. So we have quite a bit of experience in affordable housing, and we also have experience in affordable housing developments that have different income bands. So, for example, right now we have a project that just finished lease up in Concord, New Hampshire, that has income bands at 30%, 50%, and 60% of area median income. So we work closely with an affordable housing property manager who has a full compliance department and expertise in qualifying incomes, obtaining income certifications, making sure that the tenants who are, put into particular units meet all the requirements that we have relative to our affordability restrictions.
Rob, did you have a follow-up?
Yeah, I
Also,
guess,
Linda's been, wait, sorry, I mean,
Wendy.
Wendy's been waiting for a call.
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see that. Okay.
Tom, my apologies for interrupting, but, it's been brought to my attention that there may be a point of order that needs to be discussed regarding, current legislation, current litigation. And John Kiernan would be willing to speak on behalf of that if you'll have it.
A point of order regarding current litigation, you said, or legislation?
Litigation.
litigation.
Okay. Sure. I don't know exactly how to respond to that, but if John has information he'd like to share, I guess that's fine.
Certainly. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. And this is not a comment on the merits of this application, and it really is not a comment on affordable housing. I recognize that it's a social goal. I recognize that a certain percentage of CPA money is designated for affordable housing, but separate and different from that is that just Friday at about 4:30, the town of Milton filed its appeal with the OADR, that's the Office of Alternative Dispute Resolution, because we appealed the DEP permit. So we are currently, as last Friday, and we've got our scheduling order out. I don't know when the hearing is. We're in the process of preparing pre-filed litigation, as is the applicant, Mr. Camposi. So this is active litigation. So the Conservation Commission originally denied the permit.
Right.
For lack of, we claim lack of information as to the impact, the hydrological impact in this area. The neighborhood opposition group has also appealed, so there are actually two appellants. This is an act that it puts the town in kind of an awkward position if we're appealing a permit and at the same time funding.
Well, of course, the timing is always something, but the fact is that you could have you could potentially have an application before us for funding for CPC, but the project wouldn't ever meet the qualifications. Like it has to get a permit. It has a comprehensive permit, but it doesn't have everything else. And so it could be one of those situations. I've done them in other towns. I've had community preservation projects go to affordable housing projects that never got built. And after 3 years, we vote the funds, but they never get used. And so after 3 years, we rescind the vote and the money comes back, it's not contingent. Well, we haven't given the money to anybody. It's set aside, but it's not going anyplace until certain things are happening.
Yeah,
That's why I started by saying I'm
Yeah.
not commenting.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
This is just context.
Yeah.
So.
Okay,
is
no,
the-
it's helpful to know, and I think Kathleen's right, obviously that's, if it got to that phase, either with us or with the Affordable Housing Trust, a project grant agreement could speak to some of that. Yeah. Okay, is there anything else, Joseph or Lou, that you want to present?
No, I had a few more slides. Actually, I was going to speak a little bit about the litigation on the next slide, but I think we've, covered that already. I think just the last side again, and whether it comes through the CPC or the Affordable Housing Trust, we really do want to emphasize the public benefits of this project. So not only does it meet the Community Preservation Act criteria for funding affordable housing units, low and moderate income housing, it also meets the criteria giving preference towards redevelopment rather than, just blank new construction. And then finally, it'll also help the town of Milton achieve its housing production plan goals, as well as the obligation to achieve 10% subsidized housing inventory in accordance with state law. As of the most recent subsidized housing, Milton was still under that 10%. So having this project go through and actually be built and have those units created will put them onto the subsidized housing inventory. They were on the subsidized housing tory originally, once the project was approved, but given the appeal, they've now, I believe, moved off the subsidized housing until that appeal gets resolved. So, lastly, the project will support construction jobs. It'll support permanent property management jobs in the town of Milton. It will support local spending and also increase local property tax revenues. So we are, strong proponents of this project. We're very excited to see it built, understanding that it does still have to resolve some of the appeals. We're strong believers in this project and that it's going to be a great project for the town.
All right. Thank you very much for coming and
Thank you.
explaining that. And we will be back in touch. I know Julie Kramer, the chair of the Affordable Housing Trust, is aware of this application. Partly because the Affordable Housing Trust met last night and this came up. So stay tuned and we'll be back in touch with both of you.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Right.
The next
Cheryl.
one is, I guess, the next several is boat ramp, bocce court, town center basketball court,
Everything.
Milton Greenway.
You need Nick.
Oh. And then we do it.
Let's see if he's in his office.
I just sent a text to Cheryl.
To Cheryl, but to Nick in his office, I would guess.
Yeah.
Okay, so Nick Milano or Nick Connors is around.
I have a quick question, Tom, for Kathleen.
Yes.
So with the last applicant, like, regardless, if that's funded, is that, let's say that property changes hands, they're developers and they sell that project to someone else. Does that restriction go on to the next owner or
I think
whatever?
it does, but I would defer to.
Yeah, it's a requirement of the comprehensive permit that, that there's a perpetual restriction. And usually they're layered. There's one to the, one to the Commonwealth and then one to the town. But yeah, that's a perpetual restriction.
Okay, I thought so. I was just making sure.
Yeah. They're not saving it. It's all to fill this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, no, totally.
This is the budget.
Yeah, it's not bad. 2,000 cubic yards. Like 5, 7, well. Well, you voted. That doesn't mean partly for the we'll have contingencies on that. And so, it's contingent upon. And it's a tie up. That's a lot of money to tie up. It is tied up. It's set aside if it passes to meeting. It's set aside for the purpose. And so you can have a branch, they could be tied up in litigation for years and.
Yes.
Nick is down at the warrant committee meeting.
Okay, all right. So he might be he might be a while.
So should we just discuss them or?
So.
Without Nick in the room?
We'd have to.
Well, I
mean,
don't know how we.
No, you should wait for Nick. no?
Yeah, I think we should wait.
Okay, I don't know if he's an hour or.
Well, can it get moved to another meeting?
Yeah, we could also bump it to the next.
To the next meeting?
Yeah.
All right, so, so I can't quite tell. I know there's a lot of conversations going on in the room, so I can't quite tell.
Okay,
where we are at here.
meeting's in order.
He's texting, sometimes coming through.
Okay, but go
Okay.
ahead, Tom.
Okay. So one thing I want, while we're, potentially waiting for Nick, or we'll see what his, schedule allows for tonight. I wanted to raise, one issue, that, I've talked to a couple people about, but, so I wanted to just inform the committee that I've been in touch with the proponents of the Wharf Park, project. As you remember, we funded that project. It is their intention to apply for bonding funds from the CPC for the build out of that park by the September 26th deadline. There was a bit of confusion about whether they needed to submit an eligibility proposal since that project hasn't changed at all and it was deemed eligible last year. You know, that's definitely something we should clarify as a committee going forward, but I encourage them to submit an application by the September 26th deadline for bonding funds. It doesn't impact our funding available in FY26 because if we decide to bond for the project, interest payments, debt service essentially on the bond wouldn't be paid for another full year. So I just wanted to raise that, get any feedback from committee members, but we don't have a formal eligibility application from them, but I do believe they're eligible, in my personal opinion, but I wanted to open that up for discussion. Rob and Pete, I see the hands so far, but
Yeah.
so Rob, why don't you start and then Pete, you can go second.
Yeah, I think I would support this application because it was previously in the queue and I know they reached out to us. So I think, Scott reached out to us. So I think I do think we need to clarify in the future though,
Yes.
but that I think most applications, just at least to check in with us before, like when the eligibility comes out. I think it would be good, but it's kind of a gray area because they did just submit last year. And then, I don't think the project's changed anything, but they're looking
Right.
they're looking for funding, right? It's completely eligible. So I would agree with you, Tom, that I think it's that they wouldn't need to do that. But I think in the future, we would just want to make sure that maybe there's a check-in or something that.
Yeah, it's a little, yeah, I agree. We need to clarify that because, we just saw Jeff Stone, right? It's the second phase. It's clearly the next phase of that project as opposed to the same project, right? But anyways, go ahead, Pete. Yep.
We don't have this discussion on the agenda. Should we put it on the agenda for?
Yeah,
discussion?
that's
Yes,
probably a good idea. That's a very good.
I think it's much more complicated than this.
Okay.
We just turned down the Forbes house because their application was a little late. And they had been.
Yep.
They'd been deemed eligible for a couple of times. And
Well,
this-
but remember, that's a completely different project.
Different project, Pete.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I hear your.
We should hold the discussion up for next time. 'Cause
I
don't think it's as simple as that.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, Pete. I always forget that, and so we'll put this on the agenda for the July 14th meeting and have a full discussion on it. Thank you. Okay. Speaking.
Onto that one.
Yeah.
Do we have a status report of where they are with the project?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So I can share that so that people have that in front of them before the 14th.
Could we even, Tom, have Scott, reach back out to him. If you make an agenda point, would he be available to the committee to give us an update?
I think, yeah, I mean, I don't know his schedule, obviously, but I would think he would be inclined to do that. I guess it's a question to the committee of if we're gonna have a conversation. I mean, obviously our deliberations are public, but do you want to have it with Scott in the room, or would you rather have it without him in the room, frankly?
I think initially without.
Well, yeah, right.
Since we have two meetings scheduled, we can do that.
Yeah, we
You
can
can
do both.
do.
We can do both.
And we didn't offer the Forbes House an opportunity. I think we do have to be.
But they-
about
Yeah,
our-
I mean, to me, there's very different circumstances because that was a porch project of something we have not funded there, just because it's the same applicant. I'm not saying the applicants are automatically eligible. I'm talking about project, and Forbes came to us with a very
New
different
project.
Yeah, a brand new project. So anyways, let's defer all of this. It's a healthy and good and needed discussion we need to have, and let's defer it to the July 14th meeting.
Well, I don't know if this should go to July 14th either, but we have not received from the town either the bonding information that we requested some months ago. Is that correct? So. is
I
that worth
have not.
pursuing?
I have not. Yeah, that's a good point.
How can we pursue that? What's the best way to pursue that?
What were we asking the town for?
It was sort of like a spreadsheet to determine how much of a bond we could do. And what impact it would have in terms of.
Yeah, I can reach out to Joanna McCarthy, who's the town treasurer, who I think would be the
Yeah.
appropriate person there.
She was probably doing tax bills.
I think they
Yeah,
just
it
came
was
out, right?
fine. I think they just came out. I haven't seen mine yet. I'm holding my breath.
Don't look, Pete.
I'll just pay what I paid last year.
All right, I'm cognizant of the hour, so I want to just go through the rest of the agenda. Do we have an update on Nick's availability, or is it looking
He
like?
said he'd be back in a few minutes.
Oh, okay, good. All right, while we're waiting, let's go through, I don't know if we have, a lot of these things were on the agenda last time. I don't know if we have additional updates, but let's go through them to see if we do. Discussion of CPC public outreach. I think that was related to website, social media, and other types of public outreach, including the a conversation with I'm blanking on the name of the Jackrabbit. Yeah. So is there any updates from anybody on any of this?
Did we
I
not?
thought we came to a resolution last meeting. No.
Well, we were gonna allow, Linda had some concerns about it, and we wanted to hear more from her about some suggestions that she had instead. I don't know, Linda, if you want to pick up.
Well, I don't know that I have suggestions so much as questions. I would just like to know what other towns with CPA funding have done in this area. I wouldn't want to be quizzed about how much money we're spending without any background in terms of what other towns do. I don't know what other towns have done in terms of social media or public outreach, and I think it's a good idea. I just don't want to blindly approve a dollar amount without some more information and background.
Yep.
So I think somebody's got to make a proposal to the committee on.
Well,
something.
I think that the way we could potentially go about it is just seek a proposal from an outfit like a Jackrabbit, maybe get some others, and then come back to the committee with what that dollar amount is and see if we have an appetite to it. During our last meeting, I don't know where we ended up landing on it, but I think maybe it was just waiting, to discuss it
Yeah, I
with you,
think
Linda.
And I may have said I would reach out to Stuart and I haven't yet, just to see if there's examples, to Linda's point, examples of towns that have retained a firm like that.
Well, I'm less interested in other towns having dollar amount or retained public relations firms, just as a background to what other towns have done. I
Yep.
would
Yep.
I wouldn't
um,
want to propose that we spend X amount of money or entertain a proposal for any kind of outreach without knowing the context of other social media
Maybe-
that has been
maybe-
done.
Yeah.
So
Kathleen?
it's just literally, I
Maybe
would like to know what else has been done to give us a context for evaluating a proposal.
Okay,
Okay.
and I just, if it just
Kathleen?
to speak to that a little bit, is that, in my experience, that it has been, towns have gotten PR assistance when they have been facing a vote to override or to end Community Preservation Act. And so it's to dealing with sort of election issues, and challenges to the CPC in a local town. I do not know of very many towns who use it ongoing without a challenge. I mean, it's usually hiring a PR firm or that sort of thing, or using social media when you're trying to protect the Community Preservation Act in a particular town,
Not for public relations.
not for public relations in general. People tend to, in committees, in my experience, do that, they do, they use the town website, make sure that that's up to date. They also make sure that, there's signage at places that have been helped with CPC funding. There is one at the Forbes Museum, for example, with Peter and I saw that on Sunday. So that's really the sort of major outreach that people have done. And I've only really seen, significant money being spent when there's been, communities seeking to overturn CPs.
And
Thank
that's
you,
not,
Kathleen. No, that's exactly the kind of background that I was hoping we could get. And it's a real benefit to have Kathleen's experience to inform our ideas. I think it's a good idea, but I don't want to put us in a position of allocating funds and having somebody criticize us because they would say that the funds should be spent in a different way. So Kathleen, I appreciate that background. That's exactly the kind of thing that I was trying to understand.
Linda, one other thing that might be helpful from the Community Preservation Coalition website is a list of sort of social media things that have been done by other towns. So for instance, the town of Easton organized a CPA workshop at the local library, City of Beverly used social media to invite the public. CPC chair participated in local podcasts, town of Tisbury ran newspaper ads, town of Hanson printed a full color brochure. Orleans created a detailed informational brochure. Town of Arlington sent out media alerts to place announcements about upcoming public hearings. Newton held a happy birthday CPA celebration and an open house. Salem and Springfield both issue a press release every year advertising their public hearing. Blah, blah, blah. And it goes on. There's about, 20 different examples of mostly encouraging people to attend something or to hear about it.
Public education.
Yeah.
yeah. And probably most of those pretty low budget, if no budget.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's exactly the kind of information that I was looking for. And I think we did do one outreach just recently, didn't we? And that might be a good start. Plus, I believe Julia said she can put images up on the town website. So it's a good start. And then we might pursue the idea some more. But my concern was that we have some idea of the context in which we were operating, that we weren't going to go into this so enthusiastically and spend money that really was probably better spent somewhere else.
Good point.
Okay, sounds good. All right, Nick is back in the room. Thank you, Nick. And the floor is yours for the multiple projects that you're sponsoring.
Thank you, sorry.
No,
Some
no
sort of
apologies, no,
weird pause.
no apologies needed.
Thanks for the time. I guess I'll just quickly describe the 3 applications we put in. I can take any questions in whichever order. So the first one is the town center one. And I know the committee has an application for the town center court and bocce court rolled into one, but also has an application for the bocce court as standalone. I think I had asked Christine to apply first alone, and then we had a meeting with the neighborhood and we said I would apply together. So there are 2 applications. In theory would be one project. So the idea, I'm sure you've seen everything, is just to wrap up the work on basketball court next door, which we did get 40,000 for, but working through a few different contractors, we weren't able to get the scope of work under that dollar amount. And then Christine Stanton and her team at the COA has been thinking about a bocce court, so I won't go too deep into that. I think you've heard about it already, so I can take any questions on that.
Nick,
Second.
So Nick, just on that,
Yeah.
you're anticipating that in the final funding round, there would be one application in front of us.
That is our plan. That is our plan. I just want to make sure we're in touch with both the neighborhood and with Christine and we coordinate that, but there will be coordination between the single application, or if it does decide to become 2 projects.
And it would funding would probably go to the town, to the DPW or something to put out a contract or something.
Yeah, that would be how we would plan to carry it.
That would be a good way to do it.
And,
We would, I mean, I know there's a lot of moving parts to this, but I think our brief discussion last time, the committee would encourage a one application.
Okay.
Yeah, if that's.
No, that's helpful feedback.
That's fine.
And
Yeah.
we'll prepare it that way.
Okay.
Thank you.
I know that there's sort of this drawing of this, and just sort of looking out at where the bocce court would go, would it mean that those beautiful trees would have to go? Have you gotten down to that level of detail?
The landscape architect is a member of our shade tree advisory committee, so it would shock me if he, and I know that I would not expect that. I would be sure to avoid those, those.
Yeah.
We lost enough when we from the fire station.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Second application, I'll just talk.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I have a couple of other questions about that. Was there gonna be lighting? There was no mention of lighting on this, either one of those.
And that has been something that, I think some of the conversation with the neighborhood was not necessary and not being requested, so.
Not encouraged, probably.
Correct.
Right, yeah, okay. And DPW would take care of the maintenance of,
Yeah, right now that is managed, under the town departments for maintenance on roads.
Right. and would you have to go out for other bids at this point? Or-
So for design, no, those services are not required to, but for construction, it would be, a package for construction.
Because there's 2 involved in this, so is that good? Would you hope for one?
Ideally, we'd like to have one mobilization and one contract. with the other.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay.
Secondly is the other, we submitted for additional environmental permitting work related to the Milton Landing boat ramp. And I know this was in front of the CPC last year. We essentially copied and pasted last year's application. We have not done any further engagement with Child's Engineering, which is the firm that we have been in touch with and has been doing work with us related to that boat ramp. And the landing committee will need to weigh in between now and a funding application. I think we have some homework. I know some of the comments from last year, and I had a conversation with Pete as well, in terms of recreational access. I think everybody can agree it would be great, but when you're coming down to, somebody being able to launch a boat for a day, the obvious question is where they store in their truck with their trailer or their vehicle with their trailer. And down there isn't, even if there wasn't any boat storage down there, being taken up permanently, there isn't a lot of room at the end of the day, especially now. So it's it's something and it's a restriction and a limitation that we're aware of, but it's something that we'll seek to speak to more directly in the funding application.
So can I just talk a minute about the landing? I heard from a couple of people about the Dexter,
Southfield.
Southfield.
Alice.
And wanted to taking trees down, so I went to pay a visit last weekend. And having the master plan implementation committee doing the early planning work for the wharf to follow up on the plan's recommendations to improve access to the waterfront. I feel like that it's gone the opposite direction, and looking at it, it's less attractive to someone feeling like they're welcome there because it's got this narrow entrance next to that big structure. And it doesn't feel like people are invited into that end of the wharf. And then you've got the cradles on the front portion. It just really feels less attractive to residents than it did before. And I'm really disappointed about that. And I think everybody who worked on that planning and participated in those meetings would be disappointed too. And someone said to me, you know, how do Milton students feel coming to do crew when they see this big, it looks like private wealthy school coming in and taking their waterfront? And this was just said to me at a social event over the weekend. And so I'm going to ask, you know, Dick Burke, who's a representative from the landing committee, to speak to the MPIC at our next meeting, but I did want to share that with you. Because it is a unique asset, and we're seeing these wonderful projects proposed for the waterfront. And I'd love to see a wonderful project proposed here that actually makes it inviting for residents, for even if you're not on a boat, because the water is beautiful when you're there. And and most people don't even realize outside 88 Wharf that that's public right there. That's chapter 91, right? Like that pathway and those. So there should even be like signage and if there's a way, I know there's a bunch of kayaks down there, but do people, I mean, can you even come in a kayak and get a parking space and take your kayak?
I always do.
Much less a big boat.
I always do.
But it's not, have you seen that, what it looks like? There's really very little parking there now for that.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't done it yet this season, and given the sailing schedule, might not. But,
It's just a lot different than it was last.
but yeah, I went to Boston and I parked and I took the trolley just because you should. And, so I parked there and I did sort of notice that boat jet. Yeah.
Yeah, so I took my bike and I went back all the way into the corner. And at the time that we did that study, again, there was this idea that back in the corner, there were things happening, like after hours that maybe shouldn't be. And now there's even more of a dead corner or dead section back there behind that. So I don't know, like the person who was speaking to me was someone who lives at 88 Wharf, and they were interested in the lease, and the lease, you know, allow for that, and what's the length of their lease.
Yeah, so it's a temporary structure. It's meant to be temporary. It's meant to be able to be taken down with a few days' notice. I think those comments haven't gotten unnoticed, and it's not something we disagree with. I think sometimes with these things, they're a little bit different when they're in concept and in a plan that you see in the plan. So I would agree in terms of how it's situated, that it appears to kind of restrict access. Obviously, that's not the intention. And some of the conversations we had doesn't make sense, because Ponset Rowing that supports Milton Crew and others is located in the section adjacent to the Dexter section, so it would have made more sense to have them flipped, to have that set back more against that rear corner. So those are things that, you know, Dexter's been a good partner. They've been open to any kind of feedback and concern to make sure that they're not infringing on anything. They installed, designed and built the low profile dock that is there, that is available for kayakers, it's available for canoes, it's open to the public.
It's lovely.
At all
Although someone did tell me that they tried to get off there and there was like a rope on the edge, so to get off your kayak there, you have to step over the rope on the edge. So, yes.
the dock.
Of the dock, yeah, so this was just recently.
Yeah, it's there, but it's, you just looked it up. I mean, you know, it's sort of there as a safety feature.
And I'll double check that in terms of, because the intention of it
Yeah.
going in was to be used for the public.
Yeah.
To
It's just a-
support their efforts, but if folks feel, it's more important, if they feel like it's not open to them, we will correct that. The
I think
feedback-
a design review on the fabric structure, so we could have gotten something lower profile and that didn't blaze Dexter Southfield as if they owned the town.
It's
Things like
fine,
that.
now
Somebody
feedback,
should have reviewed that.
it's feedback that they will be open to hearing and thinking about how they can partner with us going forward. It's a 5-year lease, they're in year 2. They very much want to have all of their 3 renewal options extended. So there is mechanisms to make adjustments as we see fit. To not have that impression, to not have those failings carry forward.
So and I don't know, it's never been involved in that more committee, again, I can ask Dick about this, but. One of the ideas initially was to have some, like Charles River Craig, which I think is now called something else, but. They host like with NEPRA, I think like a free event on the park that's on the Neponset Trail, when anybody can come and go out on a kayak. That's a way to introduce people who might not be on the water, like, residents who might not, be aware of it. So if there were even just once a year, an event there that was widely publicized, that could bring people up for free out on the water. If that could be written into one of their renewals, or even if.
Well, they don't have the right kind of boats. Dexter Southfield, but you wouldn't be having people going out in a crew, no, you wouldn't do that.
Well, somebody, whether it's Dexter or somebody else.
No,
I
but
think it's.
you just say, but that could be something that the town does. We don't have to have Dexter do that, we should do that.
Well, Milton Community Growing, they did it a couple of years ago.
Yeah. I mean, that's not something you'd be looking at Dexter Southfield to do, that'd be something you'd be saying, the town could get better.
And I can imagine they would be open to partnering and
Yeah.
helping support initiatives along those lines. And the other thing is they are, as well as the other tenants down there, contributing to a rental revolving fund that is meant to help make investments down there. And they couldn't necessarily go to program, but it can go to landscape improvements, signage improvements. So those are the kinds of things that the lease revenue we can tap into to invest in. And these ideas are, they're thoughtful, they're good suggestions, and they're things that we can look to implement over time.
Rob?
Is the parking that's perpendicular to the river? Is that public parking?
It's posted for 2-hour limits,
Yeah.
I think, but they're public parking spots.
I've lived here for 18 years and I did not know.
It used to be
Yeah.
posted as service zone, I think, and now it's posted, I think,
I have always felt like I'm trespassing.
That's because the cradles used to be stored there and you always thought you were interrupting the yacht club. Now you feel like you're interrupting Dexter.
Well, no, I've been kayaking down there for years and we definitely have had that situation with the old yacht club. That you would be pulling in and taking out the kayak and all that sort of stuff. People go like, and of course, I'm a member of 4 yacht clubs, so seriously.
You know how to deal with.
I could raise
people.
one, no problem.
Rob
But,
had,
but yeah, it's been out, but that new dock is wonderful as opposed to stepping in the mud, so, yeah.
Rob
But,
had his I'm sorry. I'm not trying to interrupt anybody, but just Rob had.
no, go ahead.
No, I will say as a past collegiate rower that I support the rowing programs along the Neponset and the river. That being said, it's news to me that the private school is set up kind of shop in town. So I think Nick, I do know the Neponset Rowing Club. It's not an inexpensive sport, and the shells and everything else that it costs to do the sport is quite expensive. So I think any opportunity here that can help the other clubs like the Neponset Rowing and Milton Crew and such, that is more home-based, would be an opportunity for this other school to help kind of build the community around this. And then I like the suggestion that Cheryl had, because there's many community boathouses, right, that can get more people involved in the sport and such. So I absolutely think there's some opportunity here to leverage the school.
Yeah, we agree, and that is, I mean, that's where that low profile doc came from. And it was done in intention to be available for, you know, Neponset Rowing and Milton Crew from there. We have, you know, we do quarterly check-ins or seasonal check-ins, both in the spring and fall. With all of the tenants as a group, they're all talking to each other, they're all working together, so. The collaboration between the three groups that are down there, between the Neponset Rowing, Dexter, and Milton Yacht Club is good. The relationships are growing stronger, I think, and having everybody kind of working together is a better place than we've been. We aren't sitting here thinking everything's perfect, and we appreciate the candid feedback, and we'll take that and bring some of these concerns both to Dexter, but also to the landing committee in terms of how to address this moving forward.
So the request that you're asking, getting back to this, is that for internal exploration, or would you actually be hiring outside?
So the concept is to contract with Child's Engineering. So if you go down to the landing, there's a big boat, there's two boat ramps. There's a boat ramp, if you're looking at the water on the far side, that's much smaller. There's a boat ramp on the left that is tied to an old kind of pulley system, rail car system. So the idea is to, in theory, replace that old rail car system with a new true ramp, which would involve, you know, excavating what's there, dredging some of the landing area. Problems with that include contamination in the landing road. There's an extensive tank bond study that shows the extent of that contamination on the saltwater side. That is not going to be addressed by the Neponset River Superfund projects. So there are a number of environmental steps to go through. One of the key ones being based on what has to come out of there. How are we going to? Where does that have to go? How is it going to be disposed of? What is the permitting process for that? So ideally, we'll come out of this with a very clear pathway on permitting and get the ball rolling on permitting. We have the design for the ramp already done by Childs, so this is more just to kind of keep moving towards ideas around construction. When we try to get round number estimates on what it might cost, contractors that we reached out were reluctant to give us any numbers because of the uncertainty around disposal of contaminated soils. So getting clarity on that will help us be able to come back with a true cost estimate to actually do the project, if that's the direction we decide to go in. So it's very much an initial kind of overview of environmental permitting processes.
Would there be a response where you would say, stop, no more? It's like, it's not worth it, we can't do it.
Yeah, I think that's what we're trying to get to in terms of, can we nail down a price tag that says, what price is it worth it for the town to take this task on, and at what point is it not? You know, I think the yacht club, they have the system, they all know how to use it, it works for their purposes. However, it's not the safest in the world, not everybody can use it, you know, recreational boater really can't launch from there, so it does have those limitations, but we all know it's a cost benefit analysis at the end of the day, so that's what we're trying to get, so we have, you know, a better understanding of costs to flush that out.
And that, would that include, as was mentioned earlier, the parking of ramps and all that kind of stuff, and trailers and all that?
There's no good answer for that, so that's gonna have to be part of when we come in the fall for a funding application, part of the narrative around how we expect it to be used. I will note that one of the bond bills approved by the legislature has in it an earmark for $750,000 for boat ramp construction. And part of our problem is those bond bills, the funding doesn't always get released. Seldom does, so maybe it's not fully accessible for any city or town really. But we also can't say with certainty what that's applicants. So again, it speaks to trying to get a better sense of these, costs.
Was that railway installed by the yacht club at some point, or was it predating the yacht?
It's a good question.
It looks to me like it does, it might, but,
Might predate,
yeah.
it very well could, I mean, because, you know, there were big boats built.
Oh, no, a
down
friend
there.
of mine's grandfather built
launched and
ships,
things like- That's
and
right,
had
so they
on the
very
Quonset
well,
there, so.
at some system.
I've never asked that question. I will do that.
I, when we were doing that study, I went down and I watched them taking boats. I think it was out of the water, and I took a video. It was a long video. For one boat. It's time consuming, yeah, because that's the whole wooden, you know, cradle thing that they.
Oh, yeah, no,
Whatever.
No,
Yeah,
no.
like-
And the motors in the shed and they run these.
Yes,
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
when we had, I was a member at Cohasset Yacht Club, we had a marine railway that, you know, you had to be a magician to remember how to use it, but yes.
Yeah.
And it's small, a lot smaller than the one that used to be, you know, that's there at the Milton Landing, because that's a big one. I was just
All right, I
thinking.
want
in
to
terms of-
see if we can move Nick towards
Yeah.
the
Yep.
Quonset Greenway project, or the Milton Green, I forgot what it's called, Milton Greenway?
Milton Greenway?
Milton Greenway.
Yes, and this was truly, we're really just trying to understand if the committee views this as eligible. So in the pedestrian and bike master plan, that the town completed a couple of years ago, one of the key recommendations was trying to build out and expand upon what's referred to as the Milton Greenway, which is trying to get a safe bike and pedestrian connection from more or less East Milton Grand Ave across over to, the end of Brook Road and Doyle's Parkway. So anybody who's driven down Brook Road knows that for some portions of it, it's very wide. It does have on-street bicycle lanes today. A lot of it has sidewalks already. So when we're looking at it, and as we approach needing to do some work on growth from a paving perspective, we had a little bit of a discussion about if it made sense to try to make a true shared use path off street. So think of something more like the Quonset Greenway or a rail trail in another community, you know, a 10-12 foot wide shared use path. The length of Brook Road, and so bike lanes would come off the street actually, and a sidewalk would be enlarged to be a true shared use path. You know, there's a lot of questions that come with that, in terms of what are the impacts, what are the sacrifices, is there space? And we're aware of all that, so I think we wanna first get a sense, and I was looking around and it appeared that CPCs and other cities and towns do fund rail trails. I don't think I found a true like shared use path, something like this. So I was looking for guidance from CPC in terms of eligibility, and then if it's eligible, we'll think about it more deeply and come back with a more kind of rounded out proposal. What we're looking for right now would be for essentially a traffic engineer to come in and say, zoom out on Brook Road, where are there places where is this feasible at all? If it is, where is it feasible? Where are the restrictions? Where are some impacts? Where the harder decisions have to be made? So it'd be a really high level kind of concept plan that really just is assessing right of way, tree impacts, parking impacts, and you know, engage the public. So true, just like a first step concept plan. If it's eligible, if the select board is supportive of further study here. And we flagged it because again, Brook is in places very wide. There are, you know, grade issues as you get closer to East Milton that might make it infeasible. So we're aware of restrictions going in, but that was the concept. And before we spent a lot of time on it, we just wanted to make sure it might float to the get past the eligibility test first before we get dedicated too much time and energy on it.
Yeah, it's a good question. You know, I think you're right, Nick. You know, rail trails have been funded with CPA money. That's quite clear. Multi-use paths or shared use paths. I think it's you know, I know there's been some stories of towns essentially just applying for a sidewalk which is definitely not eligible. But this multi-use or shared use path, is kind of this hybrid. And so we can seek some advice from the CPC, the statewide CPC, and see what examples might be out there for us to help us determine, just from a statute point of view. Kathleen, I don't know if you have experience.
Yes, there's actually a case on it. It was in Norwell about
Okay.
the sidewalks, using its sidewalk, the CPA money, and the argument that it was a recreational use when really they were just, putting in sidewalks. And so, it was, it's challenged, obviously, and the town lost. Because it wasn't a recreation, it was a road project.
5-foot sidewalk.
It was a sidewalk, it was,
This is something different.
This is different than that.
so you could, I think, possibly use it, but especially if it was connecting to other paths.
Well, it is. If you look
Yeah,
at this,
right, so that supports it. The Norwell one was seriously a road project and they were just trying to
Right.
figure out some way to pay for it.
What I like about this too, could potentially lead to the brook walk and to the
Yeah,
estuary or the
Pull it all
margin.
together,
yeah.
Pull it all together nicely so you can get somewhere without having to drive and park.
yeah,
And really getting from east to west, I'm sure some of you, like I have ridden on the Neponset Trail and you decide you're gonna come back by Granite Ave. Well, that's not an attractive way to come back. And look around, but if people, there's a whole section of Milton that is not very well connected to the Neponset Trail, which is a lovely asset. So this, would really provide that opportunity. I like it.
What about the question about, you said that Brick Road is up for improvement anyway, correct? Repaving.
Yes, it's starting to reach the point where
Yeah.
it needs a project, so
So what's the timing of that?
not in this paving cycle, potentially maybe next year, portion of Brook, but we're several months. We're probably 9 months away from making a decision on that.
But you're just talking basically paving as opposed to,
Repaving.
because
But that's where it would go in. It would have
they
to
put
go
in,
the same
well, they
place.
put in the bike paths to narrow the road to slow down traffic. And to make it, because it was always, people didn't know if it was a 1 lane or 2 lanes, because it was so wide. And so if you were really gonna take the bicycle use off of that and put it there, it'd be nice to narrow the road.
That would be.
Then it becomes a whole different project.
Correct, yeah, and if we're, we wouldn't necessarily save money in this project if the road were all of a sudden a little bit now, if, we don't have the 4-foot bicycle in there. Anymore, because there are costs associated with removing that, but 15 years down the road, now it's not as much maintenance to repair and improve and maintain. So yeah, you'd wanna try to tee these up, but the concept again would be one large shared use path, ideally on each side of the street. The duration, the bike lanes would now come off of the street would then be narrower. The holy grail of a bike project, if you can not impact drivers, you can not impact parking and not impact any trees, like that would be great. I don't know if that's possible in this case, but it's what we want to explore and understand, what are the impacts and where are those impacts and, are there places where they can be mitigated.
So one thing I'll also mention is on like wider paved streets, some communities are integrating trees into these new paths, because you can get some shading on it and just cut down a little on the heat island effect. So if there's enough width to do the sidewalk and the separated bike path and have trees, that would help quite a bit. Cause you get out there on a bike and those really sun beating down on you on those paths, it's a lot of pavement reflecting back up on you. So it could be also integrate some seating along the way, so if there were, you thinking of it as a recreational, that people could stop and take a break under shade tree or a shade structure or something.
And then you get the water fountain. Right?
Well, you've got Turner's Pond, maybe you can just peel off there and sit there, which is really nice.
Okay. Any other questions for Nick? Thank you, Nick. This is great. These are great ideas for the town. So,
Thank you.
And I know, Tom, we chatted briefly about it, but I did not submit an eligibility application for Work Park, but please fully expect a funding application for Work Park. We had already spoken about it, I just wanted to mention that.
yeah. And we we're gonna have a full discussion of that at the next agenda, because we didn't put it on the agenda for tonight, but yeah,
Okay.
thank you.
Thank you, appreciate your time. If you need anything else, let me.
Thank you,
Thanks.
Debbie. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, I'm inclined, unless there's anything urgent about items 5 through 9, to defer those given the hour. And unless we have a quick update on any of those.
So Julia, you ordered more construction signs, right?
Yeah, I picked up 20 new signs this week.
That's
You
great.
already picked them up. Okay, great, great. So,
There's just the permanent signs that we need the update.
Do they live in your office?
Tom, to be fair, Kevin's Chrism's on the line.
oh, okay. Did he want to present too?
I mean, I know he was just here to support both of his applications, so that's why he was here.
Okay,
I know I gave a little bit of feedback on the softball one. But I just want to give him the opportunity since he's been on for the last 2.5 hours and he texted me.
It's been great, yeah. I'll be very brief. Thanks for having me. So I think in your last meeting, Rob talked about the softball batting cage project that we have at Milton High School that we want to do. Which will
Mine doesn't, the guy field.
which will really help with the softball programs here in Milton. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
yeah,
And then the second project we have is renovating the Andrews Field soccer / lacrosse / Gaelic football field. The field, I don't know the last time, we do work every year to it, but it really needs to be completely completely renovated. And it's way overused, like all our fields, but talking with Milton Youth Soccer that they think this is the next field that should be in line to have addressed. So those are the two projects that we have out there.
okay. Questions for Kevin?
But, this is a grass field, right?
Yes, grass
And
field.
will remain so, is that right?
Excuse me?
And will remain so.
Yes. Yep, it's a grass field.
Fund maintenance. It's completely rebuilt. It's not maintenance.
So the dirt patches, so this is a rebuild or?
This is a rebuild. It's a rebuild, Cheryl.
Okay.
Cut-
I was just
and-
thinking,
and-
yeah.
And complete substrate, everything else
Yeah,
that's
it's a
needed
mess.
for it.
It's a complete
It-
rehab.
Yeah,
Okay. Thanks.
yeah, for that price, I think it's not filling in holes or seating and such.
No.
And I know there was a couple brief exchanges last week, Rob, we had about the softball batting cage thing. I think you probably answered those, but does anybody have any specific questions for Kevin on the softball batting cage? And where, I think we established where it was. It's on the first base side,
Yeah.
Isle Road Field. And it's
Yeah,
open.
let me I'm gonna just share my screen for one quick second.
Yep.
I'll show you what that I just brought it up on my for those who don't know. Hold on one second. Oh Lord. Now the Zoom link is in my way. Hold on one second.
Kevin, what's the difference of, the rest of the money would come from where?
Hold on one
The
second.
185 to 300?
So Kevin, did you hear that question?
No,
from
I
Jen?
did not. I'm sorry.
Was the
Jenny?
money the money for which project? Jenny.
The Andrews Park, I was just wondering where the difference would come from. The 185 to 300.
So 185 from CPA, and then 5 from Parks, 5 from youth soccer, 5 from lacrosse, and then we're gonna go for capital money as well, $100,000.
Got it. From the town.
I have a
Yes.
question. What's the lifetime of the work that you would do here? How long do you expect it to last? With the Kennedys that you get?
Hopefully 12 to 15 years.
All right, that's good. It's longer than I would have thought. Thank you.
You know, it depends on maintenance. Better get Kevin a couple new guys, some equipment.
Yeah,
Exactly.
you're 100% right, Pete. And how much use? Andrews Park is so overused.
So you guys can see my screen. You'll see anybody who you see these 2 batting cages today are used by baseball. And the rules are, according to the baseball, is if this is always given to baseball, and if baseball's there, they use a second one. So softball is always kind of the second fiddle if we get to use this second batting cage. And so what I will say, so you look at the geo field, and this is the space that we're talking about. So you can even see in this picture that, you know, Milton softball was supposed to maintain this. You can see that it's overgrown. And here's the 2 pitching rubbers to the plates, and Kevin can attest to this, that even the pitching rubbers are up now, and they're not even situated in here. So the idea is to make this a netted structure and can basically serve dual purposes. It can be used for pitching during a game, or it can be used for batting at alternative times. And then the challenge really to this site is, if you know, when you're over here, is there's a lot of topo, there's a lot of hill space over here. So what we need to do is build a wall in here to widen this up a little bit. And then and it also will help with drainage, because Kevin, you know, this gets overrun with water and such too, right? And there's a catch basin over here that we can divert the water to around this. So that's the reason why this project is the price it is, because typically we could get like a cage or such for like $15,000 or $20,000, which we just did at Cunningham. But that's the reason why we need the money, is because it's the retaining wall that we need to put in here. It's not going to go up too high, but it's going to go up enough just to kind of solve for the retaining.
And what's the surface of the cage once it's complete?
We're thinking about, we're just going to do stone, like stone dust. You probably seen it, right? So yeah, no artificial anything. It would be all stone dust for that reason.
It's also not grass, which is.
It's also not grass, because we just don't want it to grow. Yeah. So similarly, we would have like a substrate in here to push it down a little bit, and then we would put stone dust on this. So just the maintenance wouldn't be a big issue going forward.
Yeah.
So.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. That's helpful, Rob and Kevin. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you. Kevin,
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye-bye.
Gotten through a lot tonight.
Yeah,
So,
sorry.
Tom, I'm sorry. No, you go ahead.
Well, I'm just noticing that we've actually heard from everybody. If I'm going through the.
Affordable Housing Trust.
Except for the bicycle wayfaring signage and Affordable Housing Trust. Those are the only 2.
I'm sorry, what's the other one?
The bicycle wayfaring signage.
Okay, yep.
That's the Gordon thing, yeah.
Yeah, so we may not need the second meeting potentially.
Right.
Great, because I'd be calling in from Scotland
Oh, nice.
at midnight.
So if we can do those 2.
I can't do the 14th. You can't do the 22nd.
Well, I could, but I'll be in Scotland.
I have an MP.
But we've got to hear from the remaining projects, but then we have to have our
Yeah, we,
debate, discussion.
Right.
we do have to have deliberations, so.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make a comment. I'm looking at the spreadsheet, and you know, how they're categorized as, historic or open space. I think some people thought that it could be both open space and historic, for example, at that Winter Valley, the gardens.
Yes.
So I think maybe we should think about, having another column or something which can get at that there's truly not just the Flint's House porch under historic.
No, it's a good point. You know, I think a lot of times in the statewide CPC, we have hybrid, you know, projects or something. You know, I think that's an important point in terms of characterizing them, because, you know, if the project ticks both boxes, or two of the three boxes, we should acknowledge that in how we account for that money.
And then it wasn't clear to me, did Marty Cronin say that garden was open to the public? I was on Zoom, so it was a little harder to hear everything.
She did, yeah. I mean, I think the issue is accessibility right now, or attractiveness. And you know, maybe a member of the public wouldn't want to walk down there. But I think it is open to the, I believe she indicated that it was open to the public, and could be a more public resource with the improvements.
Just a little update on that one.
Yep.
Marita and I and Georgia Lee have been talking, because there are historic landscape plans from the Whitney Estate, and Georgia has some of those plans. We've been in touch with the Homestead Historic site and the Library of Congress to try to find those plans.
Well,
And so,
Great.
I think by the time she comes in for a funding application, it might be a very different project.
Okay. But I think it's historic, is what my point.
No,
Yeah,
it's historic more than it is
Yeah.
recreation.
yeah, so that,
Yeah, it
but
should-
it would give us something in that category, is what
Right,
I'm
it should
saying.
come out of that
Yeah.
category. Yeah.
With that, I would like to ask Pete if there are so few or no historic preservation projects, what happens to the 10% funds that supposedly go to that category?
Yeah. We talked about that last time, Linda, and it was, you know, our obligation is just to reserve 10% for each category, not to spend it necessarily. There's no, yeah, obviously we can spend it, but our only obligation based on the statute is to reserve 10% in each category. So we would certainly do that if we didn't have enough project applications to fund 10%. So
when you say reserve, does that money then go into a bank account somewhere?
well,
And
it stays in our, you know, town's bank account, and it essentially carries over into next year, and then increases the pot of money available for historic preservation. You know, it adds to the 10% available next year.
all right.
It doesn't get lost, definitely not.
But it does carry over
Absolutely.
and does not disappear into other projects.
100% correct.
All right, great, thank you.
lots of times, Linda, people, towns decide that they're not gonna spend the historic preservation money in a given year to sort of build up the reserve for they know that a big project is coming along. So you vote it, but it doesn't go anyplace, and it just waits until you've got this, major project that you need the historic funds for.
So another question I have then is if, the landing park, which I'm forgetting the name of it.
Wharf Park.
Wharf Park, thank you. Is looking for bonding. Do we need a line item for bonding in these categories? Or
Well, eventually, if we do bond, we'll need a debt service line item.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's a borrowing on the vote, so that it makes it a 2/3 vote. Sometimes there's
At town meeting, you mean?
yeah.
Okay. So does that have to be a separate article then?
No.
Okay.
So depending upon what the bond is used for, would that be attributed to the category that it's in? Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
got it.
yep. Definitely. Good stuff.
Very
All right, so now the hour is even later. I will,
I remove, we adjourn.
I would entertain a motion to adjourn, and we'll defer some of the other items if needed to the next meeting, and
Not only would he entertain it, he'd positively encourage. the motion solution.
well, entertain could, could imply encouragement, I think.
He set it to music, it'd be good.
Second.
All right, I heard a motion, I heard a second, I guess I have to do the roll here, Cheryl,
Yes.
Kathleen,
Yes.
Jenny,
Yes.
Pete,
Yes.
Wendy,
Yes, please.
Rob. Rob's gone. Is Rob gone? Linda,
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
and have I forgotten anybody?
You,
Linda,
yourself.
Linda.
Myself.
Linda.
I think I said Linda, okay.
Yes, you did, and I
Okay.
agreed.
Okay,
yes.
and Tom votes yes. Thank you very much. I apologize for doing this remotely, but thank you for your cooperation.
It worked.
And we will,
Mhm.
it worked. So, I will, we'll see everybody on July 14th.
Great.
Okay.
You said you can't do July 14th.
I have an ethics meeting, master plan implementation committee.
So it's not big.